Falling Out of Time, this amazing composition by you, Osvaldo Golijov, adapted from the novel by David Grossman. This whole journey started, from what I can tell, 20 years ago, with an organization that sort of started talking to you about the loss and the grief of losing a child. And then there was this journey, more than a decade. And then, you write the piece, and we're missing a lot in between here by sort of skipping. But enter Silkroad Ensemble, Johnny Gandelsman. You had me there at Silkroad Ensemble and Johnny Gandelsman. What happened then? And Johnny, what has drawn you to this piece? And tell us about your journey, and lean into maybe what Osvaldo's talking about, that there's really only one ensemble right now that can communicate, that can fine tune those little things that bring this piece to life.
Well, yes, I met Osvaldo in sort of the beginning of my work with Silkroad Ensemble, which lasted for about 18 years. And I think Osvaldo has been one of the composers that group has worked with a lot across from the very beginning until present time. And it's for many reasons, but I think it's partly because of Osvaldo's love of music from all over the world, and incredible ability to bring those worlds that might seem really far apart together into something that makes sense, which is kind of what Silkroad Ensemble did as well, does, I guess. This piece is the latest one that Osvaldo wrote for the group. That group of people, one of the greatest thing about it is that it's a group of friends, right? And every time people get together, it's not that often that people get together, but when they do, they really value and treasure their time together. And so this piece was great to work on because it was years in the making. We had multiple workshops where we got together and we tried, some sketches, some early ideas, and we sort of got to see the piece develop from the very beginning until its premiere, and even beyond. It still kind of kept changing. And so I think, I can't say that there's no other group that can perform this piece, but there is no other group of people that had that experience of growing with the piece and watching its development. And there was also a very special moment when in the one of the last workshops, I think it was the last workshop, David Grossman, the writer of the novel that the piece is based on, came to the workshop and spent some time with us. He's a very soft-spoken, quiet man that has experienced a lot in his life, including this unimaginable, unspeakable loss of losing a child. And the way that he spoke to us at that workshop, he spoke to us about his experience was so moving, and it really brought, I think, everyone who was there to a different place. And so we sort of we carry that, all of those experiences with us, as it's part of our kind of collective memory. And so, and as you said, the scheduled performances of this piece got interrupted, and then the piece was premiered and recorded, and then we went into lockdown. And so all of the editing of the album happened during lockdown. It all happened remotely, and we all went into this total isolation. So for a group of people that really value and cherish their time together, to come back after being locked down, and be able to share this music again is even that much more special. So yeah, I don't know, we've only had a chance to perform it twice since the pandemic. We're still in it, but we got to perform it twice. earlier this year, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the piece develops over the course of a 6-performance tour. So we're really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Chris, I'd love to loop you in now. Of course, you have a history with Osvaldo. I'm imagining from your time at the LA Phil, and you chose to present this work at the Patricia Reser Center for the Arts on November 1st. It is the Northwest premiere. What is it about this work that drew you to it, and certainly now?
And Osvaldo is one of the most important voices of our time, simply put. And we are so proud to be able to present this work. When the opportunity came up and Johnny reached out, and I hadn't heard the work, actually, and I listened to the recording, and the work is so deeply moving and profoundly impactful that I immediately thought this needs to be part of our inaugural season. And you know, there are many things that we stand for here at the Reser, and one of them is our deep shared human experience and connection, and fostering that connection, and the you know, the ways in which we all have much more in common than we have differences, and the notion that we could present this work around this profound grief, you know, is really something that for us it's an honor to bring people around this work and the universal feeling of grief. And you know, and I can only imagine what that feels like as a parent losing a child. But also this idea of the grief that we've all faced collectively over the last several years, losing people in the pandemic and not being able to connect. And of course, on top of it all, having these musicians perform this piece, the ability to present this here in Beaverton, Oregon, for me, it was really, there was no question about it. We had to do this. It's a highlight of our season.
Musicians that are coming together on the stage are so special, each of them in their own right and in their own field. And so I imagine what they bring to this piece is very, very special. Osvaldo, I've heard you talk about the title alone, Falling Out of Time. And I've heard you describe this, you know, walking in the street after you've experienced loss, and it's sort of like an out of body experience, or time is the sense of time. Tell us about how you approach the work and your experience in writing this work.
Yeah, I mean, when David came to this workshop that Johnny mentioned, he spoke about grief as an exile, as being in an island, separated from, you know, like actually like people with diseases in ancient or even today, you are quarantined, you know, they put you, anyways, grief is an island, and you are out, time keeps going on. And there is, just near the beginning of the piece, there is this number where the father started saying, it's impossible how August becomes September, how the spring turns into summer, into fall, how you know, the moon, the sun, and how he says how the childrens of others, you know, like, and he stops himself there. In other words, for the person grieving, time has stopped, and you can see that time keeps going on. When you go out in the street, like, you can go, if you are in a state of grief, you can go out in the street in a totally sunny day, and everybody's going about their business, and you think, how can it be? You know, like, the person that I love is dying or has just died, and it's just like, it is that sense that you are stuck, right? So falling out of time is more poetic than I'm stuck. So that title is that idea that you're falling out of time. The time keeps going for the rest of the world, but for the griever, it's that island in time.
Was it a challenge to write this piece? I mean, and I know that you don't shy away from intensity. Ina Damar for me was life-changing. You don't shy away from intense topics. But what was it like? There's a responsibility and a gravity to this that I can't imagine.
I think it was atonement. Atonement for my cowardice. I have one very good, one person that I love and admire. He used to be like a big, like I think the provost of Holy Cross, where I taught for many years, right? And I love him so much. And I remember, I knew that his daughter, that was at the time 12, I'm talking 30 years ago. I knew that she was at the Dana-Farber, she had leukemia. And I had to go for tests at that time. And I saw him in the parking garage. And I couldn't bring myself, I knew that he was going to visit his daughter, and I couldn't bring myself to go. And I felt horrible for the rest of my life about this. And like this idea of, being a coward, not accompanying, So in a way, it's a piece of atonement, of trying to, to atone for that cowardice and to accompany the people that, it's not about, it's a very specific grief. It's a very, it's the unnatural. It's the what this shouldn't happen. The parent outliving the child. That should not happen. Everything else can be explained. Even a spouse, a sibling, obviously your parents, grandparents. But that kind of questions the entire contract that one seems to have with the universe, right? So it's a very specific grief. And I do think that, yes, it's true that we all experience that a little bit with the pandemic. I do think, because it's also like, how can this happen, but anyways, that.
Thank you for sharing that. It's really powerful. And I think so many of us have been with friends, loved ones, colleagues who have lost, and the loss of a child, we don't know what to say.
Exactly.
I have a very close friend who lost her son, and she said people didn't know what to say to me. And I was alone, really alone, almost shunned, I felt shunned in a way. And so this piece allows us to walk alongside.
Yeah. That's what David told me. When his son died, he received condolences from like some of the greatest writers alive in the planet, because he's he's one of the greatest, right? And he said they didn't know what to say either. And so for him, and the character, of the writer in the piece says, I need to find the words. Because like, if at least you can find the words to name that specificity of, then at least you begin to understand. I need to find the words to understand. This is right at the beginning of the piece and at the beginning of the book, the character that is, the alter ego of David, right? Is a writer. Anyways, this idea of not having the words, not having the courage. Anyways.
And Johnny, what has your journey been with this piece? There at the beginning, at the birth of this powerful work, and producing the recording, the definitive recording of this work. What's your journey been like with this gravity?
I mean, it's an incredible world, you know, that just like performing it and working on an album as well was very emotionally, I don't know if taxing is the right word, but you can't kind of half do it. You can't just play the notes. You can't just listen to it and kind of go about your day in the background. It's just not that kind of piece. So yeah, as I said, I mean, seeing something develop from early sketches to something that is a complete gorgeous work of an hour and 20 minutes, it's a luxury to be a part of that kind of process. And I still feel like we're still getting to know it. That's what I love about really any piece of music that you get to perform, multiple times, is that every time you go back to it, every time you perform it on stage to, even if there's one person in the audience or maybe 10, or 15, whatever, it changes. And your experience as a performer changes, I think, and the piece kind of morphs, so I don't know. We have 6 shows on this tour. We have a few shows in April of 2023, and it'll be really interesting to, in May or June of next year, to look back and see how the thing can continue to evolve, because I'm sure it will.
I know after this performance, we're hoping to have a Q&A to talk with the audience. Chris, is that still the plan? Does that still feel right to you and Johnny, who will be in the hall that night?
Yes, absolutely. To
Wow.
hear any and all questions from people. And I know, Suzanne, I just want to comment on something you asked earlier at the beginning of this interview about what people can expect to hear. And for me, knowing Osvaldo's music now for a long time, for me, the real test of really impactful, moving work is this thing I call stopping time. Osvaldo's music, every bit of it that I've heard has this unique ability to stop you in your tracks. And I was just listening to this piece again this weekend. I was in my backyard actually, and then my kids came out looking at me and thinking, why am I weeping at the end of the work? And I was among the trees there, and just really, it did it again. And every time I hear it, so it's got this very visceral quality, this raw quality, and in this work, there's such a unique sound world that's created that is about. It seems to me that if there was ever grief of this kind, specific kind, represented in a sound world, this piece has several of those moments and a huge emotional range. I'm looking forward to that unique moment being created here in our brand new hall. I can't wait for people in the Northwest here to experience this work.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Osvaldo. Thank you, Johnny. Really appreciate your time and your thoughts.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Suzanne.